innocent black people who are just jogging down the road, minding their business.
Jogging, walking, talking, praying, eating, barbecuing,
sleeping,
right? Swimming.
Yeah. Baby, yeah. You don't say ready on this. You know I have patience.
Greetings, family. This is Kyle Dixon here, and this is another episode on the Grand Rising Collective. We have a really special guest for you all today, a good friend and colleague of mine from way back. But the brother is definitely continuing to do a lot of great things in the community and for the city in itself. And just to give you a little bit of background, if this is your first time watching us, Grand Rise Collective, it is the Grand Rise Collective podcast. It's a platform for us to enhance, empower, enlighten, and inform our constituents, people who watch us, and this allows us to give us a way to highlight those people in the community and also those who we know in our collective that are doing really great work, excellent work. And the reason we chose the term Grand Rise Collective is it's a term of endearment in the morning, how people say good morning, grand rising, good rising. It's a way for us to remind ourselves of our excellence and what we need to be doing throughout the day. And also it's a way of challenging ourselves to always rise to the occasion, right? We all have challenges, we all have struggles. And this is just a reminder for us to always be at our best and always be excellent. So without further ado, I'd like to turn over to my partner, PIC, Kyder Bentley. Take it away.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. As I polish my intro, as we do this, I just want to say welcome back. If you are a subscriber, and if you're new here, my name is Kayode, and that's my colleague Cal, who you just heard. I think it's very important that you understand who's talking to you and who you're listening to. So to give you some background information on myself, my name is Kayode Bentley, and I'm the president and founder of an organization called 4Ts, which stands for Teaching Teens to Think. Its mission is to help inner city youth identify their natural or inherent skill set, so that way they can use it so they can use it so they can complete their college and high school education, higher education, in order to get a job, but not just get a job, but to establish a career and ultimately start a business if they choose to. The demographic that my organization serves are youth between the ages of 16 to 24. My reasons for being a part of this Grand Rising Collective is to, in other words, disseminate that information to a larger demographic. Whereas my demographic deals with 16 to 24-year-olds, Grand Rising Collectives allows me to share the wealth of my knowledge to those in the community, whether it's parents, organizational leaders, business leaders, and things of that nature. So that way these conversations that we have based on our experience can be spread about in order to uplift and empower the community. Now, that's my role and position as president and founder of 4Ts Productions, but I also am a professor at Fordham University, and I also sit on the advisory board at Long Island University. So all these skills that I have in these different positions, as well as having over 14 years in corporate IT, is what I bring to the table here in order to uplift, empower, strengthen, and just, inform those of us so that way we can make the world a better place. So without any further ado, that was a long, boring introduction. I apologize for that. But we have, like my man Cal said, we got this guy. I'm interested in learning more about this guy. So I ain't gonna, y'all check it out for yourself. But without any further delay, Eric, please introduce yourself. Tell us the name and what you do, and then we'll dive right into, our discussion.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you guys having me on today. I'm Eric Capehart. I am a Nashvilleian. Kyle, Kyle's been up in New York for so long. Y'all might not know, but he's a true Southerner.
Yeah, that's what's up. That's what's up. Yeah,
South,
right, that's what's up.
Nashville,
man. Cashville. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. I have a long history of working with youth. In 2007, I founded a mentorship organization here for Black males called All the King's Men. And we did that for 11 years. And while I was doing that, I realized that as I was working with my boys, my members, I would go to their homes a lot, and I would realize that, you know what, there's something going on more so than just what I'm providing or what I'm seeing as a mentor. I would see lots of what I can recognize now as mental health issues in the family that would affect the whole family unit. And so that's when I took a liking, well, not necessarily a liking, but I felt the calling towards getting into counseling as a profession. And so I've been practicing since 2017 here in Nashville as a professional counselor. Also, I'm an entrepreneur at heart, though. You know, I started off after college. I went to Tennessee State University. I finished up there in 2004. I was a radio personality, and thanks to Kyle. Kyle helped me get into that business back in the day. And so, but I'm an entrepreneur at heart. You know, I've had several businesses. I have a lawn business. I have had an entertainment company, and now I run my counseling practice. And so that's a little bit about me. But really, I like to just let people know that I'm a helper. I'm just an authentic type of cat. I'm just going to try to talk to people on the level that they're on. I don't try to use a lot of big words or try to seem like I'm smarter than I am. I just try to relate to people on a surface level. But when I'm helping people, I take it deeper. So that's a little bit about me. I'm also an adjunct professor at Tennessee State University. I teach in the College of Business there. And so that's a little bit about me. I don't usually get to brag on myself a lot, but that's just a brief introduction. I've written a book. I'm an author, published author, wrote a book about my experiences as a mentor. It's titled The Miracle Maker, Uncovering the Hidden Miracles in Mentorship. You can find it online at Amazon.com. And it's also on my website, which I invite all of you to go to my website, ericthecounselor.com. That way you can learn a little bit more about me and what I do.
Indeed. Yeah, HBCUs holler. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, man, the brother has many talents and skills that he offers, not just self-serving, but very giving to the community. He has been. And I'm really proud to know this brother. We met on a happenstance while we were in school. And when I was in college, we were both in college, I had a radio show. And, like my business partner, we interviewed him also a few episodes ago, Steve. So I brought him on as another figure because we needed somebody to kind of give it a little bit more of a balance. Because sometimes, college. So sometimes Steve wasn't able to do it because he was studying. So, I wanted that other person, and Eric fit right in, man. Like he like fished the water. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, so it was a great experience for us to kind of like go through that and see our progression as not only just students, but going into our manhood. And I see the brother for sure. That's why he's on the show.
Definitely appreciate it, man.
Definitely, man, for sure. So I know family's like, oh, y'all, self-grandizing. So let me get into it, man. Where you grew up, talk about, growing up in Nashville, me being from Nashville. How did that shape you getting into like who you are as a person and just like going forward in life?
Yeah, man. So my background, before I came to Nashville, I actually grew up in a military family. And so I had an opportunity to live really all over the world. And my mother's from Nashville. And so I was living in Wiesbaden, Germany when I came back to the U.S. and I was 9 years old, I think I was 7 years old. And we moved to Nashville. And so coming to Nashville, it was just like, I was just telling someone about this the other day. This has been like the first place where I saw segregation and saw the separation of people based on their color, the skin color, more so than I had ever experienced anywhere else in the world. And it was kind of like a shock to me, honestly, even at age 7. And as I've grown and, now I'm 39, it's like Nashville's a cool place. But unfortunately, I have experienced some racism here. You experience classism here. You got a whole gamut of different ways that we separate ourselves from each other. But it has helped shape me into the person I am today. It's a great place to live, though. I'm glad I'm raising my children here. There are things that you can get involved in to have a more balanced cultural perspective. But yeah, I think Nashville's a cool place. I think we still have some room to grow as it relates to diversity and seeing it on all levels. You know what I'm saying? Because once you get to like the C-level executives around town, you're going to mostly see that it's we're absent from the table, especially Black males. And then if we do get in, we're expected to be a certain way. And if we're not like what the Nashville society, will like us to be. If we start speaking up too much, then we get labeled as he's a troublemaker or, he's causing too much of a problem. So we need to move him to the side. And so that's just some of the things I've experienced. And it may not be the experience of everybody here. I speak for myself, and I do talk to a lot of men and women on a regular basis. And we do share similar stories, but all in all, I think Nashville is a growing place. It's one of the fastest growing cities in the United States.
Definitely.
But you see a lot of our white counterparts moving here, and the gentrification is taking over. Kyle, you were here not too long ago. You may have seen that.
I did. Yeah, I did.
But we're still holding on. We still have a good footing here, and the Black community, we stick together. We stick together. So it's been good, man, growing up here.
I'm not too. I don't sugarcoat. I try.
Look, that's great.
Right. That's awesome.
I don't have a poker face and nothing like that, but and I don't know how soon, Kyle, you want to jump into it, but I do know Eric has to leave. He has a time frame that he's on. So, Eric, I want to make sure we stay within that and cover as much as we can. And most likely, it's going to be a part 2 anyway. So let me get to it. Recently in the news, man, I saw, and I might be getting the names incorrect, and I don't want to, but Arbery, right?
Ahmaud Arbery.
Ahmaud Arbery. Yeah.
And I didn't know about it until I think this week, and I started seeing the footage, and it started to hit me. And one of the things that I noticed over the years as I try and pose this question to you, Eric, is I hear a lot on Facebook about why is this happening? We need to do something. We need to talk. And honestly, and this is the first time I think to an extent I'm sharing this, this shouldn't even be a surprise. It shouldn't even be a question, right? So, at a certain point, I'm like, y'all forget all that. Forget about asking questions. Forget about why is this certain president in office and allowing this stuff to happen. So I guess, Eric, what I'm trying to pose to you is, besides the marches, right, which has its place, besides asking questions why they're allowing this to happen, besides talking about hiring, what's his name, who's the Biden to come in, or the other president to come in and expecting them to do something, what can we, as a community, besides us ourselves just talking, is there anything you can give to the conversation, Eric, that gives us concrete steps in which we can deal with, especially since you're down in Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That's right.
You're seeing it firsthand. What, besides the stuff that we already been doing for 40 years, and you see we're like back in the 60s now, what difference can we give to those of us who are like frustrated to an extent, don't know what to do to deal with this and stop the killing of innocent Black people who are just jogging down the road, minding their business.
Jogging, walking, talking, praying, eating, barbecuing,
sleeping,
right? Swimming.
Man, I wish I had a magic wand to solve this. And I think this is the question that we're all struggling with right now. What is it going to take? And one of the things that I've been doing, and I don't know if this is like the ultimate solution, but I do think it's going to help. And I've been talking to my white friends about how they're raising their kids. I have real relationships with these people, and I talk to them about the struggle. Like, I talk to them about the things I talk to my children about, and they're like, wow. And I think I get them to think about, if you had to have this conversation with your children, think about it. And so I'm encouraging my white brothers and sisters to think about that. Like, make sure that you're not raising kids that are going to grow up to hate people just because of the color of their skin. Make sure you're raising kids that are going to not going to hate people at all, And so that's one of the things that I've been doing, because a lot of times we try to turn and look at ourselves, like, what are we doing? What can we do differently? And they're like, what more can we do? Like this hoodie, and this hoodie could get me shot, just wearing this hoodie. In fact, the legislation here in Tennessee tried to make it a crime to wear a hoodie. Try to make it illegal to wear a hoodie unless you're exercising or doing certain things. And it's like, it's a sweater. This is clothing that anybody can buy. So it's not always what do we need to do differently. I think it's time to start reaching out to the people across the table, across the aisle per se, and talk to them and have those real conversations with them. Like, this is what it's like to be a black man. Like, I shouldn't have to, like yesterday I went for a walk, and I run a lot. I shouldn't have to worry about losing my life while I'm out in public exercising. You know what I'm saying? That causes anxiety. Anxiety leads to depression. And so it's not good for our mental health to have to worry about just being a person of color in the United States. And so I think the thing that I'm doing is, I don't think this is what I'm doing. I'm actually talking to my followers on my social media accounts. I'm not one of those people that's going to shy away from this conversation, because this is real life for me. This is like, I mean, we're trying to protect ourselves from COVID-19 and everything else.
Right.
It's enough. Now we're constantly faced with the thought and the threat of actual death. Like, I think just last night somewhere in northeastern United States, someone was shot and killed. A brother was pulled over and he was killed, I think last night.
Yeah, I heard something about that. Yeah.
Again, it's like, it can't just be all on us. Like, we can't do, I mean, we're just living our lives.
Right.
I don't know what the brother did to get pulled over. I don't know what happened in the exchange, but I seldom, if ever, hear about a white person being shot and killed when they get pulled over by the police. And so it's legislation that needs to be changed. If we take it broader, like there's legislation that needs to be changed, laws that need to be changed. I think there's like a lynching law going on right now. I think it's now a federal crime to lynch somebody. It's those types of things. We got to get politicians in place. We have to have doctors. We need to have people of color, especially people of African descent, to represent us at all levels of everything. And that way, I believe we can start to mitigate or minimize some of this stuff. But I mean, I don't know. I don't have the answer to that, because it's so complex, and I'm not the one perpetuating it. You know what I'm saying? We're not the ones doing this. But if we were doing it, we could say, hey, let's stop killing, innocent people. I know there is a thing, I don't like to say it, but I do know black people kill each other. I don't say the whole black on black crime thing, because that's just
right. The popular terminology. Yeah,
that happens. But I don't know, man. I think it's just going to take individual responsibility. And I know hatred and racism is going to exist, but we got to do everything. We got to have these conversations. And I prime people. I provoke people. I say, hey, if you have somebody in your family that's openly racist, you got to say something.
Yeah.
Don't just sit at the table and say, oh, it's funny, that's just Uncle Bob, he's just talking. It doesn't matter if you're black or white. We have to be able to stop it right there, because if not, it's just going to continue on. And then I could take it further. And, I did some research on epigenetics and how people are just genetically programmed to hate. It's in their DNA. And so, man, if I had, like I said, when I started answering this question, I wish I had the magic wand, but I think it's going to take a collective approach and many different strategies to try to eliminate it as much as possible.
Thank you, Eric.
Indeed, man. Indeed, brother. And yeah, man, I'm glad, brothers like you are in the position you're in, because a lot of times when you think about mental health and counseling, you don't think of a black male in that position, especially in this country. Right. And the fact that you're playing your position in reference of making not only our black young men are good, but just society as a whole. Because I know I don't think you just have black clients. Am I correct with that?
Oh, no, I don't only have black clients.
Exactly.
But I do target, I do specifically market to black people. I do, but not everybody. I can help anybody. In fact, right. I have, it's funny. I don't want to say it's funny, but it's a thing where I have white women who bring their sons to me, and they tell me that we wanted him to be with you. They don't really say why. And so it's kind of like, well, what do you think it is that I can do for your white son?
Right.
But they bring them in, and I work well with them. It's just, I don't know what it is. I think it's just that authenticity. I'm just a down-to-earth guy. So I can help all people, but I do specifically target my business to black people of color, so that we can do what the church says, experience mental health. Like, experience it, like live it. Not just talking about it, but actually feeling better. Mental health affects your psychological mind. It affects your spirituality, and it also affects your just overall well-being. And so that's what I mean when we talk about experiencing mental health. It's like it's not just not having anxiety anymore, but it's living your life at your highest self and feeling comfortable with yourself, expressing yourself, in the way that you feel most comfortable with. And so that's what I do.
Indeed, man. And to speak on like the running family, like, I run and Eric runs, pretty regularly. And that's also part of like, meditation and part of like easing stress and whatnot. So think about this, for those folks who haven't experienced this or don't know, we're out there running. A brother like Ahmaud Arbery is out there running to maybe relieve stress or just to get that good exercise, exert some energy. And you're trying to de-stress. So just think of like, as we're running, as Black men, we not only trying to run to de-stress, but we're also thinking in our own minds that, hold on, let me not run down this block because no one's on here and they might see me as a criminal. Or like, let me run, like even I'll give you a perfect example. When I run here in New York City, I wait till the sun comes up a little bit. Like a lot of times, people are like, I want to beat the sun. I'm like, nah, like, let me let some light come up first. And then I'm gonna go out there and do my run as early as possible. That I have thought about that and processed that because I'm like, just in case something or someone looks at me as other, then I can say, well, hey, everybody else is running. There are other people out running. I got on a tire. You're running. Like, it's real, family. It's very real, even in New York City,
I'm out. When I'm out, it's like I'm usually running around people who don't look like me. Mm-hmm. And when I run past them, I'm thinking like, I wonder what they think about me. Black guy running with long hair, and they run in people's neighborhoods. I run in open spaces where it's,
right.
can run, right? But I'm always thinking like, I wonder what they're thinking. I wonder, are they thinking anything negative towards me? Or they, but I shouldn't have to think that, Kyle.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And you're talking about how you want to wait until the sun comes up, but a brother of mine was murdered in broad daylight.
Mm-hmm.
Broad daylight. That's not stopping. I don't think that stops people from doing what they want to do. We've seen it time and time again throughout history.
Facts, man.
It could be the middle of the day. Brother Garner got choked down the street up there, right in the middle of the day, right?
Right, he did. He did. Staten Island, yeah.
We shouldn't have to worry about these things, and that's why I think it goes back to what I was saying, man. We got to have these conversations with the ones who are doing it, and their family members, and trying to break through some way to see us as people, man, because this is not good for our mental health.
Nope.
It's just not.
Nope.
It's just not a good thing. And so I think we got to have those conversations, and like I said, legislation and all these things, anything that we can do to try to prevent. And I hate to say it, it's like, I don't know if it'll ever go away, guys.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. The world, we don't live in a perfect world.
Mm-hmm.
We don't.
I'm right.
All right, calm down, man. Let's calm down.
Yeah, and we definitely know that as people of color, Black folks, African of descent, we know this. Like it's one thing, Eric. Me and Kade had a talk a while back, and I made an assessment to say that we're the ones Black folks, namely people of African descent here in America, we are the ones that make the Constitution honest. We're one of the people that make the rules of the Constitution and the rules that this land is supposed to follow. We help make people honest about it because we are not white males. You know what I'm saying? We are not privileged white males. Mm-hmm. For when the things that we have to go through in order to get just basic human rights, we help make that document honest. You know what I'm saying?
This is one of the things I've had to learn as an African American living in this country, Kyle and Eric. And what it is the emotional factor, right? Because you deal with mental health, and I'm going to ask you questions about that specifically as it relates to inner city youth, particularly inner city young men. And what I find myself struggling with even to this day at this age is how can I put this? The I don't even know what word to use, but what I find myself is controlling my emotions when it comes to stuff that's so simple, right? Because if we look at the situation, and I think you ever heard of Jane? I forgot her name.
Elliot.
Yes. And she asked a poignant question. She said, how many of you white people in this audience would want to be treated how Black people are treated in this country? Stand if you want to be treated how Black people are treated in this country.
I want every white person in this room who would be happy to be treated as this society in general treats our citizens, our Black citizens. If you, as a white person, would be happy to receive the same treatment that our Black citizens do in this society, please stand. You didn't understand the directions. If you white folks want to be treated the way blacks are in this society, stand. Nobody's standing here. That says very plainly that you know what's happening. You know you don't want it for you. I want to know why you're so willing to accept it or to allow it to happen for others.
And none of them stood. And she asked the question in various ways. None of them stood. So that lets me know that you know exactly what we're going through in this country. And all those excuses you're using about, they should do this. Or like you said, it's not only us. We're doing everything we possibly can. We're not carrying guns. We're minding our business. We're living our life, and we're being attacked. But you know something's wrong with that. Right? So the point I'm trying to make is, when we have these conversations, it takes every fiber of my being to be able to stick to the facts. Let me to be able to stick to the facts about what exactly is going on. And the reason why I'm saying that is because we've had these conversations. Civil rights was in 1960 what?
3, 4, early 60s.
1963, 1964. Yeah.
We're in 2000.
Really 1955, going into 1960, really, yeah.
We're in 2020. We've had these conversations already. It's not like they don't know what's going on, especially now with technology.
Yeah.
So the point I'm trying to make, and I don't expect you to have an answer, Eric. So I'm just pretty much this is a vending session for me. But I'm hoping from this dialogue, people who are viewing, it adds to the conversation.
Absolutely.
So, all I'm saying, and Kyle chime in, I'm doing my best to try to control my emotions. But
okay, so you say you're asking about the young men.
All right, so let me go into the young men then. So Kyle is helping me tailor this thing. For a young man growing up and having to have this conversation with their parents, where their parents are telling them, listen, when the cops pull you over, just comply.
Yeah.
When you're jogging down the block, what can you tell your child if they're just jogging down the block? And the cops aren't even the ones pulling them over. What can you tell them? Comply. And you got somebody with a gun, 2 people with a gun, 1 in the back. What can you tell them to do when they're not even disobeying the law? You got a car blocking them from running. What kind of conversation can you have with a young person who's seen this? What can you tell that young person as you deal with mental health and things of that nature? What kind of advice could you give a young person?
Man. Damn, Coyote.
I keep it real, man. I'm just telling.
Man, I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm just gonna be straight up. I don't know, man. What do you tell a person? What do you say? It's like when you see that it's cultural conditioning that's taking place. You're being conditioned to think that you're not safe, period. You're being conditioned as a black male to think that if a white man tells you to stop and come here, you're supposed to come to me. You're being conditioned to think that you're not able to fight for your life, because even if you fight for your life and you lose your life, you're still going to be criminalized, and the person who killed you still might get off. And so I don't know, maybe this is a part of what I would say to a person that's old enough to have this type of conversation. And I would just get their thoughts on it. Like, what would you do if you found yourself in this? I would try to make it situational. What would you do if you found yourself in a situation that Mr. Arbery found himself in? What would you do? And then I would just kind of work from there, because I don't know. I don't know what I would have done. I probably would have did the same thing. Like, who wouldn't? Mm-hmm. You're in the South. You're anywhere. Some guys roll up on you. You notice they're following you. You got one in front and behind you, and you block. They got guns. What are you supposed to? It's like fight or flight.
Yeah.
That's a mental health thing. It's fight or flight. You're going to fight or flight. And I would say, you got to fight to live. I mean, that's what Arbery did. And he, unfortunately, he still ended up losing his life. So I don't know, man. That's, I hate to think, I shouldn't have to think about that.
Right.
I shouldn't have to think about what I would tell a young black man that found himself in that situation. Because you best believe our white counterparts are not telling them, their kids, having these conversations. One of my board members at my organization, he was a white guy. I trusted him. He was a good person, and still is a good person, Dr. Curtis Basinger. And I remember the day I told him that, I said, did you know that black men and women have to teach their sons and daughters how to act when the police pull them over? Dr. Basinger's probably maybe late 70s now. He was like, really? I mean, he's from Baltimore, Maryland. You know, he's a doctor. He's been a doctor. He had no idea. I was kind of like, really? You don't know we have to do this? He was like, nah. He was really like shocked that that's a normal part of growing up as a Black person in America. He was shocked by that. You know what I'm saying? That's why I'm kind of shocked by the fact that I have to even have this conversation. The three of us brothers are having this conversation. You know what I'm saying? It's just, and it is emotional. It's triggering. Bro, I would just probably just try to have the same type of conversation that we're having now. To be honest, if I had to have this conversation with, and a lot of my clients are young Black males or older Black. It doesn't matter. We're all still Black men. They don't care if we're older or younger. It doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter. And so, man, that's a tough question, man. It's kind of triggered me, honestly, to think like, wow, I have a son. He's only 2 years old right now, but as he gets older, I have to have these conversations with him. And honestly, it's kind of heartbreaking, the fact that I have to have these conversations with my son and my daughter, who's only 4.
Hey, listen, I'm sorry for bringing these questions out, but Kyle told me about you, Eric.
No, it's cool, though. It's totally cool.
Yeah,
it's just raw. This is like you said. I don't sugarcoat. This is raw. It's okay that we're having this conversation, and I'm giving you my raw emotions and my answers behind it.
Right.
Thank you, sir.
And Eric has been in the trenches. You know, he's been in the community with our young men and young women, you know, in the trenches. And he is one of the people that I definitely respect as far as giving their opinion, because he's doing the work. Like we talked about in previous podcasts, people are too busy talking and not doing the work. He's been doing the work. Like, as triggering as it is, that gives us at least some size to say we're doing something. There are some people who are out there talking and thinking too much and not doing anything, not even in, like you said, in their own family. They're not even having these conversations. And it's like, we need to not only have conversations, it starts there with the talk. And then it's like, what can we do? Like, and you don't have to be on the front lines, family. You don't have to be on the front lines with the fist in the air and, you know, protesting. You don't have to. If you want to, you know, if you feel compelled and compelled and just full of vigor to be able to go that route, then, you know, by all means, but you don't have to. That's not the only way. You know, that's not the only way to go about it.
No, we need lawmakers. We need people in elected positions. And I'm not the only person out here doing anything for people. We need people on the ground. We need people giving money. Like I help people. I mentor people. This is all current. I'm counseling people. I'm giving money to organizations who are actually more now on the front lines. Like I'm voting. You know what I'm saying? I'm being a good citizen. I mean, it's just a multitude of things that we have to do to try to minimize and maybe hopefully eradicate this whole thing altogether.
Indeed, man. Indeed. And just to interject, Eric, because I think, and Kaide, I think you mentioned it too. Like, it makes me think of Toni Morrison when she did the interview, and she said that, you know, like you were saying, Eric, like the question that you're asking me, you shouldn't be asking me. You should be asking the people who are this hate and violence upon us. She said I always felt, her personal opinion, Toni Morrison, felt that we always had the higher moral ground. Like, Black folks, we've always knew we had the higher moral ground. Like, meaning that we've always tried to be justly and kingly in reference of our experience here in America. It's those who oppose us, those are the ones who are enacting violence upon us for walking, for talking, for being, you know, just for being here. So, you know, she was like, no, the issue that you have, whatever that is not my issue. That's your issue. You know, James Baldwin talked about it as well. You know, to be Black is to be constantly enraged. You know what I'm saying? Like, You know, it's
That may be the answer. Like,
yeah.
is it coyote?
Coyote,
Coyote.
I heard it all. You good?
Coyote. It's like maybe we should because I'm thinking about doing this on my show.
Mhm.
I'm going to bring in some white people and have this conversation with them
Mhm.
because we're talking about this we're not the ones doing this.
Right.
There
You know what I'm saying?
There you go.
Yo.
So I'm gonna have that conversation with some people on the other side, and hear what they have to say, because again, we're not doing this.
I'm with this, Eric. See, now we get into some tangible steps, right? And the consensus of minds come together, because they may be listening to, I have some friends that I went to college with, right, who are European, who are white, and they understand, and I built up relationships and stuff like that. I think that's a good part of the solution to the problem, when we bring them into the conversation. Now, here's the difference. There have been conversations about quote unquote diversity and about, the injustices and racism and stuff like that. But here's another thing I'm going to share with you. And listen, I'm putting myself out there because it's real. I get so sick and tired of and it could be contradictory, of how come there always has to be like, for example, TV shows, right? You had one show which was We Are Living Single, which is a whole bunch of Black actors and actresses. Stay with me. It might seem like I'm going on a tangent, but stay with me, right?
Okay.
I know, because it sounds crazy, but this is the thing I'm trying to say. Whenever it's the psychology of the fact, because I'm reading this book also called Willie Lynch, Breaking of the Slave Mentality. I don't know if you heard of it, but here's the thing. Whenever do you have a group of Black people together, specifically Black men, it's always assumed that we're conspiring something against the country, or is always perceived as a threat. Whenever we try and come together and do something, we always have to have the approval of the quote-unquote man. We can never do anything on our own, per se. So follow me with the point that I'm trying to make. What I get so sick and tired of is that whenever we have these conversations about the injustices that's going on, it always seems to be facilitated or orchestrated by the white person. And I don't mean to be disparaging against white and Black. I'm not trying to generalize.
No, that's facts. That's historical facts. Family, you can look that up. I can give you sources if you like.
Exactly, right? But whenever we have our own platform, we never have a situation where we have our own platform. We facilitate it, and we're bringing a white person in to ask them directly, without sugarcoating, what the deal is, without having to be concerned about our pockets. So we always have to be careful on what questions we ask, because if we ask the wrong question, we can lose our income or our life. I think what we're talking about now with our own podcast, with our own platform, bringing somebody in and asking them questions directly, putting them on the front line to have to answer, will spark that kind of conversation that they'll have with their families and their friends to really wake them up and see what's going on. That's my suggestion as far as a tangible step that we can bring towards bringing this thing, fixing this messed up system. That's my suggestion to that.
I mean, it's a long history of, we've been dealing with this forever, right? And it's that cultural conditioning piece. It's like diversity is just is a catchphrase, right? Because people can be diverse in many different ways. Us as people of color, we're diverse, even if, like the three of us, we have we represent a diversity of men, even though we're all the same skin color, but we're still diverse. But I think it just needs to be broken down all the way down to a humanistic, just humanistic conversation. Like, I'm a human, you're a human. We probably want the same things, to protect our families, live a peaceful life. Like, how can we come together with that and not have this hatred? And as we're talking about action steps, I wouldn't try to bring a person in to be confrontational about it. I mean, I will be confrontational, but not in an aggressive way, because I'm going to be forward and say, hey, this is what happened. This is what's happening. You know, this is what's happening. What can you do to help us? Like I specifically said earlier, I asked my people on specifically on my Facebook page, I said, can you raise your children not to hate my kids? Can you make sure that you're raising your children not to hate my kids? You know what I'm saying? So when they grow up, then they can understand they're human, I'm a human. And so you're right. I think we just have to keep fighting, man. We're doing what we can, but until the people who are perpetuating this against us are brought to the table, and it might take, who knows how long it'll take.
Right.
It's not going to be just one conversation and then they go home and they change everybody in their family's perspective. But it's just got to be an ongoing collective thing, and just we have to see each other as humans, and we have to see that we have way more in common than we have, that contrast. I mean, we are human.
Yeah, that difference is not a detriment. It's an asset. You know what I'm saying?
Let me interject. Now, see, thank you, Eric, and you're right, and I have to check myself sometimes too, because I can be very passionate about how I speak, and it can come off aggressive, right?
But see,
I don't think you're being aggressive though.
Yeah, me either.
Like right now, this is not aggression. This is passion.
Right, in the right place.
Yeah, and it can't safe space. We could do this.
Right.
This is your show. Like, this is what your listeners and your tribe, this is what they come to expect from you. And it's not aggressive. It may be perceived as aggressive to someone who is not culturally aware that this sometimes as black men, we talk, our voices get higher. We use our hands, that's just a part of it. And so others might not see it as such, but I don't see anything about what we're doing today as aggressive by any means.
Thank you. And the reason why I brought that, and this is one of the things, and Cal, please interject.
No, go ahead, brother.
One of the things that I think I feel on a subconscious level as well is how come when, like if and the conversation, like you said, we want to bring it down to a humanistic base, like we're all human. I have these talks with my dad a lot, and what it comes down to is sometimes I'm kind of, not all, like I said, for those who are viewing this, who are white or any other culture, I'm not generalizing, because I do realize there are the human element to all of us. For example, when we had the civil rights, there were white people who lost their lives because they knew it was in there. So I'm cognizant of that. I'm aware of that. But I also saw a video with a police officer saying, not all cops are bad, using the example of the cops and the police. But he also said, I'm starting to see now through this quarantine how blacks are being forced to be quarantined and being dealt with a certain way as opposed to other cultures. And he's saying, I'm seeing it a lot more now where people are just trying to go to the beauty shop to get their hair done, or they're trying to go to a place to get their nails done. And they're the quarantine is being used to abuse or take advantage of them and things like that. So he was basically saying, I'm seeing more bad cops operating this way than good cops standing up.
As a police officer, I'm compelled to make this video. I've been in law enforcement for 10 years, and I'm speaking to my peers, other fellow officers, people in any kind of law enforcement position. I've seen officers nationwide enforcing tyrannical orders against the people, and I'm hoping it's the minority of officers, but I'm not sure anymore, because every time I turn on the television, every time I look to the internet, I'm seeing people arrested or cited for going to church, for traveling on the roadways, for going surfing, opening their businesses, going to the park with their families, or doing nails out of their own house, using their own house as a place of business, and having undercover agents go there and arrest them and charge them with what? With a crime? I don't know what crime people are committing by doing nails in their own house, but we're seeing this more and more and more, and we need to start looking at ourselves as officers and thinking, is what I'm doing right? Now, I want to remind you that regardless of where you stand on the coronavirus, we don't have the authority to do those things to people just because a mayor or a governor tells you otherwise. I don't care if it's your sergeant or your chief of police. We don't get to violate people's constitutional rights because somebody in our chain of command tells us otherwise. It's not how this country works. Those are de facto arrests. We're violating people's rights and taking money from them, or even worse, arresting them and depriving them of their freedom when they are exercising their constitutional rights. So let's talk about that. Let's read something right here off of the Declaration of Independence. All men are created equal. Among these, we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their power from the consent of the governed, meaning our power and any government official's power is derived from the people. Okay? We don't hold power over our citizens. It's contradictory to everything that our country stands for. And this is what I'm seeing. First Amendment rights, telling people they can't go to church, freedom of religion. Okay? Telling people they can't protest, freedom of assembly. Fourth Amendment violations, illegal traffic stops to check for papers. What are you, the Gestapo? Is this 1930s Nazi Germany? You don't get to stop people unless you have reasonable suspicion or probable cause that they have committed a crime. And I know people that have personally been stopped saying, we want to see papers showing that you're essential.
David 2, copy a phone call.
That is not how our job works, okay? What really has been pissing me off lately is the fact that these officers that are going out here and enforcing these tyrannical orders, what they're doing is they're making my job and my safety, or they're putting my job and my safety at risk. Because what you're doing is you're widening the gap between public trust and law enforcement officers. And what that's going to do is it's going to, I mean, look at what's happened to law enforcement in the last 10 years. Less and less public trust, and more often than not, that is a result of isolated incidents that get blown out of proportion. They're not isolated anymore. They're happening every single day.
So I guess the point I'm trying to make is I try and get across that if the tables were turned, it wouldn't even have taken half the amount of years for this to be fixed. If white people were being treated like black people, they would stand up and they let you know in a heartbeat, no, this ain't going down here. Yeah. Like Jews in the community were the case. So I'm just trying to get that message across to those who are listening. If, like you said, Eric, if the tables were turned, you wouldn't have even put up with half of this stuff.
Half? Like, just look at, I mean, let's look at this. I thought about this the other day, thinking about Ahmaud Arbery, a man killed jogging, right? I thought about the Central Park 5. Just think about it. Like, just think about how it's handled. Like, they wanted those boys that they accused of, they wanted them dead. They had to find somebody and they wanted them gone. They let these people live their normal everyday lives after they killed that man. They said he got what he had coming to him. I see no grounds for an arrest. You see no grounds for an arrest? A man was just shot in the streets.
Right.
That's grounds for an arrest. What do you think? I mean, come on now, like. And so it's like if we had the same mentality for a white, and the difference is, of course, we all know it was a white woman who was killed in Central Park. Right. But here's a black man who was
raped. She survived, but she was raped and beat.
Raped and beat. Yeah. I thought she was killed, but thanks for correcting me. But still, the point is, the response. Look at the response.
Yeah.
if the tables were turned, what would happen? If there was a white woman running down the street the other day, what do you think would be happening right now?
Do we really need to ask that question?
Yo, let me interject on that.
Black dudes.
Let me interject on that, Eric, real quick. They said that the stats, and I think Soledad O'Brien brought this up a few years back. The stats for white women being accosted or being kidnapped on news TV is some of the most highest ratings on news television. When a white woman is like kidnapped or raped or accosted, is some of the most highest ratings on like CNN, the major news networks. You know, like, because people don't realize that news channels also fight for ratings. So when they're putting out this propaganda, and again, family, it's not like it's not true, but when you see news upon news upon news upon news cycle with, this black person got shot, this black person got killed, this happened in the black community, and I've lived in Chicago, so I know the protocol. You know what I'm saying? And people ask me when I was in Chicago, like, damn, like, you good, bro? You all right? I'm like, yeah, I'm good. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not in those areas. You know what I'm saying? Fortunately, I'm not. But my people still go through pain and struggle. But it's like it will make you think the whole city is like that. And I keep telling even my students, they're like, "Yo, Iraq." I'm like, hold on, breaks. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm from Chicago, and I live there. I'm really from the South, but like, don't believe the hype. The hype is real, but it ain't like that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Not citywide. So yeah, but no, bro, I feel you, man. I feel
If
you.
the
But
tables were turned, man, it would have been another lynching. I don't even want to think about the tables were turned.
You know,
There'll be another lynching in Tennessee where they have on the legislation books, lynching is not allowed.
right.
I think they made it federal though. I think that's now a federal crime that was brought about by Senator Al Green out of Texas.
Okay.
A black.
We have to look into that.
He not Al Green, but he was he has a name of a famous musician. I'm trying to think of what his name was. But anyway, I think that was started from some legislation out of a senator out of Texas. He brought it, and I think it's now a federal crime to lynch a person after all these years. It's now now a federal crime to lynch.
Right.
I can't think of that brother's name.
All right. Since we're on this topic, and feel free to change.
And history lynching came post-slavery, by the way.
Right.
Lynching as a intimidation tactic.
Yeah. Wow. And it does intimidate. Like, think about it. Like what you just said. Like what we saw in that video is being classified as a modern day lynching, right?
Yes.
And it's that conditioning. It's like, you don't run around here in this neighborhood like you can't just run in these neighborhoods.
Right.
It's a conditioning. It's a tactic. It's trying to get in your psychology to prevent you from coming over in this neighborhood or feeling safe. So,
How does I want to hear your take on this. How does the stand your ground law affect? Because there were situations in the news last year and over the years in the past where you had citizens feel threatened by someone who's of another ethnicity, black, white, typical, right? And the white person gets to shoot the black person and use the argument, I was standing my ground because I felt threatened.
right.
But yet you have a black person use the same, I think it was the woman, as a matter of fact, who was raped or something like that in one of the stories. I need to bring out the facts before I just throw this stuff out there.
Right.
But there's been situations where the tables were turning. You had a black person defend themselves, right, with a gun, but yet they're not afforded to stand your ground law. There was a couple of stories regarding that, where the guy felt threatened, he was black, he defended himself against a person of another ethnicity, white, but then he didn't get the same decision or whatever the case would be under the stand your ground law. I mean, what does that say about the justice system, since we're talking about lynchings being, and legislation being passed in regards to that and the post and all that other stuff and all these other areas? It just contributes to the whole narrative of how we're being conditioned that this is our world and not yours.
How can you expect, and not you, but how can we expect the laws to protect us when they were never created to do so? It's just that simple to me.
Wow.
It's just words on the paper when it comes to us. I think just like this past weekend in Atlanta, a guy shot at some people that was on his property. An ex-NBA player, Chris Brown is his name.
Shannon Brown.
Shannon Brown. Yeah. You heard about that? And he shot at some people, but they were looking in his house and they thought it was open, and he shot at them.
Yeah, they just came in.
He was arrested. He was arrested. Now, again, let's turn the tables. Let's say I walk into a house that's for sale. The door is supposed to be open, and I walk in somebody's house and they shoot and kill me. It's justified. Stand your ground, right? And so how can we expect these laws to really, truly protect us when they weren't created for us to protect us? That's why it's like, it's stand your ground, all these laws, man, whatever. It's like, I can carry a gun in Tennessee, right? But if I choose to carry a gun, then I feel like, man, that's just one more reason for them to kill me. He had a gun. That's the first thing they're going to say, right? Even though I can have a gun. I can have a gun.
the hypocrisy, man. It just, yo, man.
They're gonna shoot me. Not that I'm not even gonna say they're gonna shoot me. I don't want to put myself in that.
Nah.
But if whoever it is, if you have a gun on you, they're gonna say, "Oh, he had a gun on him." Maybe they never saw the gun. The gun could be in the trunk of my car. But they're gonna say he had a gun, and he was expelled from school in the 11th grade for selling drugs, and he got arrested for stealing candy when he was
they gonna go down the line. The defamation is gonna go right down the line.
So justice is it's difficult for us, man. And again, this is a hard conversation to have.
Yes, it is.
I'm glad we're having.
Thank you.
I'm really glad we're having it,
Thank
and
you.
I hope people that are outside of our race will look at this and say, you know what, maybe I need to be in on this conversation, and then they could further the conversation in their circles, because I really think that's what it's going to take. And then it's like a global thing. We're not only treated this way in the U.S.
No.
Right.
You know.
Right.
This is global.
Yeah.
And so
look like what's going on in China, look like what's going on, you know, even in the favelas in Brazil, you know,
everywhere
it's happening.
I have a client in China right now. She's struggling because she's in China, one. Well, not just because she's in China, but she's a black woman in China around this time. She says she goes to the hospital, they treat her a certain kind of way. She doesn't feel comfortable using the services that are there. And so that's even more of a struggle for her. And so it's a global, you talking about a pandemic. We've been dealing with a global pandemic.
From day one.
Speak about that.
This is I think the little niche that I hope this sparks. Whereas in all these other, from my experience, all these other conversations that talk about diversity, it's always brushed over. It's never really dealt with completely in honesty. This is, hold on, let me do it. It's what the apprehension to a lot of people, be it other than blacks, having this conversation, is this is exactly what makes them uncomfortable, because they're afraid to own up to the atrocities that's taking place in this country. And granted, yes, you weren't the slave owner. You didn't have our ancestors enslaved, granted, right? You're living in this world, you struggle too, granted. But the fact that you can't even admit and have this conversation and face it, that there is something wrong in this country, and be a part of conversations like this without having to feel uncomfortable or try and change the topic or try and brush it off and say, listen, we were enslaved too. I have this conversation with my pop all the time trying to compare slavery. 400 years do not compare to 40 years of chattel slavery in this country. But yet you don't want to have that conversation, right? You feel uncomfortable without that conversation, and you want to change the topic and brush it off as if, you know, this is that or that's that. This conversation that we're having right now, where they have to stay in it and they can't escape and face it and discuss it and own up to their ancestors' rule and how they can change it, I think that's what part of the problem that needs to take place. And this is why I like this conversation right now. And this is why in our podcast, I'm hoping that this is what sparks it, whereas we can have them here and they can actually chew on it.
Right.
And it's going to be uncomfortable. And I would say, just get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Good. Let it be uncomfortable.
You know,
because
it's uncomfortable.
We've been living in it.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable for me when they say, well, what about blacks killing blacks all the time? That's uncomfortable for me. But I sit in it, and I'm like, yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, it does happen a lot. Yes. Okay. Now let's, you know, I'm uncomfortable, but I'm not going to run from the conversation or try to act like it doesn't exist. But that's just murder. People kill people in their proximity. That's just what happens, right?
Exactly.
It's not, you know, white people kill each other all the time, but you never hear white on white crime, Asian on Asian. I've never heard it. But that's that phrase I think I learned. That was a phrase that came about in the early 80s or something like that. This black on black crime. But the point I'm making is, yes, the conversation is going to be uncomfortable for them, for whoever. But I think we got to learn to sit in that and get through it so that we can start to make some progress. Listen, guys, the wife's looking at me, man.
Yeah. I was gonna say, we are like, how much time?
She's looking like, all right.
I saw that look. I was like, oh yeah, that's that look.
Yeah. She came in the room and was like, all right.
Close it out. Just close it out. Just close it out.
All right, yeah, definitely.
I would love to do it again, guys.
Oh, we do this.
Part two. Kaide Bentley, Balagoon Logic on Twitter, Instagram. I got my YouTube channels. I'm honored to have this brother Eric here. I got to keep it short because his wife is looking at him. I don't want him to get in trouble on his Mother's Day.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so family, Check me out, YouTube, Mr. Kyle Dixon, Instagram, DIX_KYLE, and Twitter, KEasy773, and Eric will end it out on your stuff.
Oh yeah, man! I really invite you guys. So first of all, thank you guys, and please let's do it again. But you can find me on Instagram at Eric the Counselor. You can follow my company, our podcast, Experience Mental Health, on Instagram at EMH.
Great podcast, family.
Yeah, thank you, man. EMH Now on Instagram, and those are the two places I'm hanging out the most online. And again, my website is ericthecounselor.com.
Beautiful, bro.
As we say, peace.
Peace and happy Mother's Day.
Yeah. Baby, yeah. You know, say, Ep.14.